What up, though? What up, though?
What up? What up? What up?
We are
Pardon me
back
for
at
long.
it again. Conspiracy brother, go ahead and bring this in. Back.
Uh, how is everybody doing this evening? It is what November 3rd, 2023. This is Uncomfy Truths. I believe it's episode 13, but I could be incorrect. Um, and we had to take some time away just to do personal things. It's personal stuff. We're not getting paid to do this. It's a labor of love. We would like to be paid to do this, but
Oh
as of
yeah.
now, this is a labor of love. So when we have a moment, when we have time, and we can get our schedules together, we will be bringing you information as we can to give our perspective on what's going on in the world around us. But I'm going to give it over to my brother, conservative brother, Daly, so he can take us where we got to go.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. We are back at it again. Once again, we were away for a little while, but we are back on the scene. A lot going on. Like conspiracy brother was saying, sometimes with conflict of schedules, there's other things going on. We gotta, live our own lives, do what we gotta do. you know. So it's not like, oh, Israel, Palestine, let's go ahead and start talking about this. We had to wait for the right time for us to get back together. And once it's ready, time for us, then we'll get back to seeing what the world, what's going on in the world, news wise. So yeah, we can just kind of get right into it. As usual, I'm gonna throw up some headlines on the screen, and then conspiracy brother, I'd love for you to kind of kick things off. Obviously, since we kind of been and on our hiatus, lots been shaking up in the Middle East. Obviously this Israel Palestine conflict. Some say it's a long time coming. Some people aren't surprised. Other people are shocked. You got everybody in your ear. Like, I stand with Palestine. I stand with Israel. Pick this side. Pick this team. Screw you. So there's a lot we got to talk about. And I definitely have my own thoughts on it. Some nuance, some balance, some maybe unpopular. But I think it's still really worthy for us to talk about. Conspiracy brother, can you see my screen?
Yeah, let me pull it up for you.
Okay.
Here we go.
Should be up. We got Sky News out of Australia. Because once again, there's just so much. We've already done this conversation of just so many literally biased reports out there, both far right and far left, that are going to give you a very skewered, um, very narrow, kind of just biased view. So we try and keep our sources here as neutral as possible. Can't even trust NewsGuard nowadays. They're far left, with their bias. But yeah, man, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of read part of this article. Conspiracy brother, you're more than welcome to hop in whenever. This is maybe just for people that are maybe out there. Obviously, if you've been under a rock, if you haven't been under a rock, obviously you know what's going on. But we want to at least kind of give a recap on kind of what's been going on with this. So, all right, a brief history of the this is from Sky News. A brief history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict explained in fewer than 300 words. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has a long and complex history. Here's a condensed version. Hamas, like many groups, and once again, conspiracy brother, feel free to jump in if you feel like there's maybe something you want to clarify, or with some of this information. Hamas, like many groups in the Middle East, is resentful of the creation of Israel after the Second World War, something promoted largely by Western powers. They believe that territory was effectively stolen from the um, rightful owners and occupiers, the Palestinian people. Nakba, or catastrophe, is a reference to the forced removal of an estimated 750,000 Palestinians from their homes when Israel was founded in 1948. Palestinians see it as a core element of their identity. During the 1948 Arab Israeli War, some Jewish militants massacred Palestinian civilians, the Israeli newspaper Haris reported. Israelis see this time differently. After the Holocaust, hundreds of thousands of Jews sought refuge in the newly created state of Israel for their own safety. They had been immigrating to Ottoman and then British ruled Palestine for decades. Supporters of Israel say that the area is the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, who were exiled following an invasion by the Babylonian Empire more than 2,500 years ago, and the subsequent occupation of the region by the Romans. In the decades that followed its creation, Israel fought several wars and ended up occupying the West Bank and Gaza, contrary to the 1947 UN designation. Hamas was created in 1987 after the first Intifada, an uprising against Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. While Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, it still occupies East Jerusalem and most of the West Bank, named so because of its position to the west of the River Jordan. Israel has established numerous Jewish settlements throughout his territory, which the UN Security Council has previously criticized as a flagrant violation of international law. Gaza, meanwhile, is now administered by Hamas, but under severe restriction of the movement from Israel. Hamas has not held elections since 2006 and is designated a terrorist organization by the US, UK, and EU for its armed resistance against Israel. All right, so that's a very kind of Cliff Notes bullet point version for those that just may not be familiar at all with the history, really, because of course we're going to get into. We'll probably pull up a new article or two, like the very latest, as you know, we're recording this of the obviously the Palestinians calling for the Hamas and pro-Palestinian reporters are calling for a ceasefire. You have Israelis that are currently doing the airstrikes. So we're going to get to those live updates. But for now, we wanted to at least go over the history that kind of shows part of where we are now. So, Conspiracy Brother, if you wanted to kind of touch on just the history of kind of what led to where we're at now, and then, of course, we'll get into maybe live updates on the ground of what's going on. So feel free to give us your take on where we're at now with this.
With respect to the conflict right now, from what I understand, what I've been tracking, this is like you see this with the Ukraine war or whatever, the Ukraine-Russia war, where the media would like to have you believe that this all started like October 7th, right? Like that's it. Like
exactly.
Hamas was just like, hey man, and this is not a defense of Hamas. Like I haven't. I'm not sitting here trying to say like, oh yeah, they should do this or they should be. What I'm saying is, this didn't start October 7th, right? They've been under some type of blockade, and you read about it, but they've been under some kind of blockade since I think it was 2007,
2006, 7, yep.
And so like I didn't really even realize what that meant, like in the full context of what that meant, until Anthony Bourdain, he did a show about Jerusalem. He went to the Gaza Strip, and it was like a big ass concrete wall separating like Israel from Gaza or whatever. And he went over it, and it was just terrible, like the way that people have to live, the conditions they're under. And it's not everybody. Everybody over there is not a member of Hamas. Everybody over there does not support Hamas, right? Any more than like you look at America. Everybody here ain't a Democrat, or everybody here ain't a Republican, right? And so you see how those civilians are victims to these policies that supposedly target Hamas, even though, as we were talking, the U.S. and Israel actually propped Hamas up because they wanted Hamas to serve as some type of, they wanted to be a wedge between the Palestinian people, because up to that point, Palestine was ruled by the PLO. So like, what was his name? Yasser Arafat. Remember in the 90s with him, Bill Clinton, and the president of Israel signed all those peace deals. And so they wanted to do Hamas because Hamas is more militant. They're more what you would consider like Islamist. Like you hear that they're more militant and stuff like that. So they thought it would like divide the Palestinian people between different factions of basically liberation. And so like now, just like with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, just like the Nazis in World War II, like the U.S. and Western allies support all these terrorists, even ISIS, right? That's probably that's the biggest, most recent group. The U.S. funds these rebel organizations. They may train them, they may give them weapons or money or a combination of those things. And then when inextricably those groups decide to either turn from doing what the U.S. wants them to do, or the U.S. just decides that they're no longer important, they make them terrorists. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so like this has been a long process since 1948, right? When the UN created borders to separate Palestine and Israel. And then over time, you have seen the Israeli people erode away the land that was designated for the Palestinians, right? Even if at its best, Israel went back to how the map was, like I think 10 years ago, it would still not be under the rules of the United Nations, how the United Nations designated that land to be. And so you just have an area full of conflict, right? And like you can get into looking at Zionism and all that, and I think you'll probably cover some of that, and we'll go into that a little detail. But like Zionism is what really pushes this whole decision, and it's America. I'm not necessarily a libertarian, but I sympathize with certain libertarian anti-war, anti-interventionist, smaller or restrictive government ideals, right? Allowing people the freedom to have autonomy over themselves and what they do with their bodies. And so like the best course of action for us as a nation, I feel like, would just be to kind of be hands off, right? But America has an interest in having its tentacles all over the country with various groups. That's why we're trying to fund Taiwan. That's why we're trying to fund Ukraine. That's why we're trying to fund Israel, right? We fund all these different countries and all these, subversive groups within these countries to act as, like moles or whatever within the regions that they operate out of. So, we allow Taiwan to exist within the realm of China, and Israel operates within that sphere of the Middle East. And I mean, it as we can see, it's a recipe for a disaster, because ultimately the whole situation is founded upon an unstable ground. So I stop right there, and let you keep going. But like this didn't start October 7th. Right? It's been years and decades in the making, because this clash was created by a group of people, the United States and the West, and European powers, saying, "Hey, we're going to give these Jews a homeland." Right? And I was watching something on Jimmy Dore yesterday, and originally, I think it was Jimmy Dore. Originally, they was going to give a piece of Uganda or something like that for the Jews. They were going to make that Israel. They was going to give a piece of Uganda. Because you have to remember, this was done at a time when colonialism was still in full effect. So the British government had control over all these different places. India, the Middle East, and parts of Africa, like legitimate control, not just soft power or like hidden power, but they had legitimate, like, this is our land. We'll cut it however we want to. And so like they were going to give them a piece of Uganda or something and call that like Israel. And I can't remember why the plan fell through, unless it was the whole idea of the ancestral homeland being Israel, or whatever we, designate as Israel today. And so, I mean, essentially it could be anywhere, right? Because you've created this land out of nothing, right? I'm gonna stop, but I'll let you keep going. I don't want to overtalk.
Oh no, for sure, man. And every time we have these sessions, I mean, there's just stuff that I know, and there's always new things that I'm learning. And I was kind of gathering a couple extra articles for a few topics. But yeah, I think that like anything, I see very haunting, disturbing patterns of 9/11 and how much that was orchestrated. Now, a lot of people, like, you got Netanyahu and a lot of people going, "Oh, it's like Israel's 9/11." I wouldn't quite go there, but at the same time, like you said, it didn't just start October 7th. 9/11 didn't just start with September 11th. Ukraine invasion didn't just start March 2022. So we see all these parallels and all these different patterns of, like I was saying earlier, libertarian comic Dave Smith. He comes from a long line of, or he's been studying under a lot of different kind of libertarians, anti-war. The Ron Paul kind of and all that crowd. The biggest thing to remember is, if you want to know who's America's next enemy is, look at who we're funding now. If you want to know who's America's next enemy is, look at who we're funding now. And I'm also taking it a step further. And when it comes to all these crises, two things you want to ask yourself: who does this benefit? What organization, movement, or governmental establishment does this benefit? And what are they distracting us from? So the two biggest questions, whether it came to COVID, 9/11, Ukraine-Russia war, Israel-Palestine, we got to also remember from a bigger macro view before we decide, oh, I stand with Palestine, oh, I stand with Israel. We need to think about, hey, oh, okay, I'm all emotional and riled up, but hey, all this going on right now, who does this benefit? And what is this distracting us from? Whether it be the Trump cases, the Biden classified documents, all the Biden crime family corruption, a lot of that stuff's not getting talked about. Maui wildfires, East Palestine, Ohio, a lot of things aren't where we forgot about. So I want to kind of just remind our viewers to kind of keep that shit in mind. All right. And even think about with COVID. When COVID came through the scene, January 2020, look at all the corruption and stuff they were doing with with Trump and everything like that. COVID was a hell of a distraction, wasn't it? So I want to just keep that in mind. Next thing I want to keep in mind is that I can't stand with Palestine or Israel. And here's why. Israel, yes, has this history. They occupied the Palestinians' land. All right, two things can be true at the same time. This is my mentality. Two things can be true at the same time. Israel is a good and a bad guy. And I believe there's also the Palestinians with Hamas, not the innocent Palestinian civilians that are just trying to just hide away and not bother nobody, but the Palestinian government, a lot of I won't say the government, but a lot of the Palestinian leaders that end up having ties with Hamas. There's good and bad on both sides. And once again, there's a lot of Palestinians that once again get taken advantage of by Hamas. You even have Israel, who on the good side of things, like I said, Israel is good and bad. There's good and bad qualities. Yes, they've been abusive. They've had these borders up. You can even watch the movie Five Broken Cameras. It came out a few years ago, I think 2010, 2011. There are a lot of atrocities and abuse that Israel has instilled on the Palestinian people. And Palestinians, innocent civilians, have been killed. They've been mistreated. They've been killed during protests. All of that is true. But two things can be true at the same time. At the same time, Israel, there has been documentation and evidence that Israel has made attempts to try and make things more civil, to be like, hey, we're gonna send you these supplies so you can build these water pipes to get fresher water and other little things, kind of peace offerings, to where we get it. We have a history of being tyrannical, but at the same time, there have been negotiations with the Palestinians and Israel to send them supplies into the Gaza Strip. And what happens? Hamas comes in, takes those supplies, takes those resources, and it funnels it back into their movement and their attacks and orchestrations. And guess what? Hamas, and we got to remember too. And let me know, if I'm rambling a little too much conspiracy, brother, just let me know if I'm getting a little off topic. But there's that we have to worry about, where two things can be true at the same time. You also have Hamas, all right, that has their war room headquarters. They're known to use their own Palestinian civilians as human shields. Okay? I'm not saying, oh, Israel never killed a Palestinian civilian. I'm not saying that. But there's blood on both sides. yes, you have Israel that has abused the Palestinian people in different ways, and then of course they've had times where they tried to help, but then Hamas has just taken over, and they're like the unofficial voice of the Palestinian people. Whether a lot of the innocent Palestinian peoples that want nothing to do with them, they could care less about they could care less about Hamas being part of there. They want to, they can't talk to them like that or they'll get killed. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's a gray area. Two things can be true at the same time, and there's blood on both sides of this. And then the point I was just about to make was that, yeah, like I said, Hamas, they've been using Palestinians as human shields. I know you remember a few days in after the 7th, there was that report from the far left and all news outlets that said Israel just bombed a hospital with all Palestinian civilians, and not even hours later, you had the biggest mainstream outlet saying actually it landed into the parking lot, and it wasn't Palestinian. It was a hospital where the Hamas headquarters was underground. It ended up landing in the parking lot, and I can't say whether or not anybody got killed or not. And once again, conspiracy brother, feel free to chime in. But the point I'm trying to make is that yeah, both sides have have a responsibility in this, and I'm just not buying the whole we need to go and bomb the Gaza Strip because they're already doing that obviously, and God knows how many more people are going to get killed. Innocent Palestinian civilians. And once again, I still feel for the innocent Israeli Jews. These are civilians that had nothing to do with Israel taking over the continent, taking over the land 70 years ago. That's wrong. Two things can be true at the same time. Killing Israeli Jews, civilians is wrong. Killing the Palestinian civilians that are wrong. And Israel has blood on Palestinian civilians, and Hamas has blood on those civilians as well. So that's all I got for right now, conspiracy brother. If you want to hit on that and touch a little further, because I don't want to just keep going on and on.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what you're saying is accurate, right? But we also have to look at it like from this perspective.
Yeah.
Let's say you accept, because a lot of people do. Let's say you accept that the Bible gives the Jews Israel as their ancestral homeland.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Messianic Jews don't support Israel as a country because they believe that per the Bible, the Messiah is supposed to give them Israel, not the U.S. or some external forces. And so they believe that it destroys the opportunity for the Messiah to come back by somebody else artificially giving Israel to the Jewish people, right? But let's just take at face value that we accept, okay, this is the ancestral homeland of Jewish people per the Bible or whatever. Do we accept as Americans then that Native Americans or Indians have a right to say, you know what, this is all our land, irrespective of the treaties that we signed or whatever, and definitely more recently than the Jewish people were in Israel. And so we want all our land back. Y'all got to get off of it. You see what I'm saying? Like we have to understand, like what we tend to do in America, and it's guided by the mainstream media, it's guided by the neocons and the neoliberals and all these people who have these globalist ideas and agendas about what the world should look like, right? In the world order. We have this idea like the only people allowed to have normal human feelings is America or America and its allies. Like normal people can't just feel like this. You know what I'm saying? You can't have somebody come in your house and then get upset about it. Be like, hey man, we're gonna move into your house and we're gonna take all this here, but you can have a bathroom. And like we don't expect anybody else to get upset. That's a feeling reserved for America to have. You see what I'm saying? And so, like on its face, we it's a double standard because if we're not going to allow for anybody else to have this mentality with respect to land and land ownership and ancestral land or whatever, like why would we allow for somebody else to do this here? Like why would we think that we could impose that on other people? And so that it makes a no-win situation, right? This conflict is never going to be resolved unless you completely kill every Palestinian. And the issue is that not every Palestinian is a member of Hamas. So you're killing children, you're killing innocent people, and that's the issue, right? You operating from this idea that Jewish safety is paramount to everything, right?
Mm.
And that can't be the case. It cannot be the case. That's like the whole thing with safe spaces and stuff on college campuses. You see all these like snowflake people, and they're like, oh, you know, I don't want to have to listen to these different ideas. Like, you can't live in a world like that. We can't live in a world where Jewish safety is the most important thing in the world. And simultaneously say we're going to put them in the most dangerous situation that they can possibly be in. You know what I'm saying? That those two ideas can't exist. Not in a coherent way.
Right on. And also, to your point as well, what a lot of people also aren't thinking about is that, once again, we take it back to 9/11. That ushered in the Patriot Act. I'm seeing a lot of disturbing patterns between 9/11 and this Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where you have people that were like, oh, don't send any more money to Ukraine. I'm against the war. They're all pro-war now. And there's a lot of things, obviously, Israeli Jews getting killed, civilians. I'm not for that. There's been some things about babies getting beheaded. Of course, people getting killed, kidnapped, dragged out of their homes. But at the same time, there are a little bit of parallels to where they're saying, oh, babies are getting beheaded. Babies are getting beheaded. I haven't looked at the videos with enough thoroughness yet. And some people have been looking at it and not really knowing how authentic it really is. Do I believe that there's been 1,300 Israeli Jews killed? Yes. But what you got to remember is back during the Bush administration, Bush Senior, when the president toward invading Iraq in, I think, 90 or 91, they're saying Saddam Hussein, they were going through Iraq and killing babies in the incubators or whatever, pulling their incubator machines out. I don't remember hearing something similar to that, like an atrocity.
Oh yeah, that was the whole shit with Kuwait. Yeah.
The whole precedent to that. So I'm not saying, obviously, I condemn Hamas, what they did to the civilians. I'm not saying I'm not condoning Hamas. I'm condemning them. What I'm saying is, in that slither, in this truth of this uncomfortable truth, there is a slither of where people are going to try and throw in other atrocity type details that may be inflated, may be downplayed, may be inflated, to where it gets people extra riled up and war hungry again, and they can kill God knows how many more Palestinian civilians. So that's the thing, is that we're using that precedence, just like with Bush Senior, to invade Iraq to stop Saddam Hussein. Just how Bush Jr. 9/11 to invade Iraq again. Yeah.
So this is the interesting thing, though, since you bring that up, because that's really like perfect for you to brought that up.
Yeah.
But like, that shit was a lie.
It was.
The chick they had come testify for the Senate, I forget her name, something like Noor or something. But like, she was a Kuwaiti diplomat's daughter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like, the Senate didn't know, but the shit was a lie. Everything she said was a lie. And she even had like a talent agent or whatever. Like, she was fucking lying.
She was talented.
You know what I'm saying? And so that whole shit, it never happened. The whole incubator babies and shit.
Yep.
It was like a false flag.
Yeah, Tim Pool over at Timcast reminded me of that. And another concern, Biden administration, obviously the border's been running wild the past 2 to 3 years. So here's a more bigger macro picture that we should all be worried about. Is even going to affect us here in America. And Andy Frisella over at you guys definitely go give a follow to Andy Frisella over the Realist Fuck podcast. Great content, telling it how it is. He definitely laid out an outline on how, okay, the Biden administration, we got open borders. We have people coming over of all different races, nationalities, countries. Once again, I'm not saying everybody that's coming over the border is like, oh, murderer, rapist, blah, blah, blah. But we have to look from a logical standpoint and know that a lot of people coming from the Haitian community, Venezuela, Colombia, there are a lot of people that are coming over the border with no due process, no vetting system. We're already been seeing it with the migrants flooding New York City, Texas, all the other cities, Chicago. They've been taken over, condemned, south side of Chicago, high schools and things like that. We're seeing it all over, New York and Chicago especially. There's been numerous documented reports of military-age Chinese nationals crossing, in addition to other Haitian island members, but also there's been at least, I think, a 50, 30, 40 count alarm about people on the Hamas terror. I don't know about the Hamas terrorist list, but the domestic terrorists, the terrorist list in general, who have come over the border. So this goes back to what I mentioned before. This crazy thing happening, whether it's COVID, whether it's Ukraine invasion, whether it's Israel, Palestine. Who does this benefit? And what are they distracting us from right now? And I think the biggest thing, conspiracy brother, they're distracting us from right now is a lot of the migrants that continue to come across the border. Yes, there's good people peppered in there. There's also a lot of the drug cartel pushing the fentanyl. There's also a lot of, once again, child trafficking. All that's going under our nose since we're so distracted with the Middle East. And guess who else is coming across the border? Not just the fentanyl, not just the child trafficking, but you have Hamas terrorists, or at least Hamas associated linked cells that have been getting into our country. All right. Chinese nationals, China's been over here. All right. I'm sure they're planning something too. But my biggest concern, conspiracy brother, is if the U.S. ultimately decides to back Israel. I'm asking you this: if the U.S. decides to back Israel, we're going to fund Iran or back Israel. Who is that going to piss off? Conspiracy brother. If we decide to
Well,
fully back Israel.
well, see, I mean, you look at what is kind of happening is like you look at the Middle East, the Arabic Middle East is like coming,
Mm-hmm.
is coming together in support uh, of Palestine, right? Like there were normalization treaties set
Mm-hmm.
up to be in place
Yeah.
for let me see something. My headphones messing up. There were normalization treaties and stuff set to
Yeah.
be in place between Saudi Arabia and Israel, right? And so
Uh-huh.
now that's on the back burner. But like just to talk about what you're talking about, like you see Chicago where what they're trying to do with the migrants in Chicago, the amount of assistance they're offering to them, and the way the people in Chicago are suffering because of the conditions they live under. It's like appalling. Like it's
Yeah.
appalling. It's almost unconscionable. But you see, like nobody says anything about it. Nobody really cares.
Right.
But then, like you said with the border, you look at the border, right? The border situation is what it is. People are coming over, and there always is an opportunity for some nefarious actors. Let's say it
Mm-hmm.
isn't even some, conspiracy like China or something, but just looking at nefarious actors, criminals, drug
Right.
dealers, human
Yeah.
traffickers, you know, gun smugglers have the opportunity to get in and infiltrate our country, but you worried about the borders of Ukraine and the borders of Israel. We don't have members of our government who have enough desire to make sure that our borders are good for us, but they're ready to do whatever it takes. Lindsey Graham is a prime example.
Oh, that warmonger, man. That guy, if I didn't already couldn't stand him enough. Yeah, anyway. We'll get
Yeah.
to him. Yeah, that motherfucker. Yeah.
And so, you have this situation where, these people are 100% full goal. Like, hey, whatever it takes for Israel. And American people are dying and suffering, and don't nobody give a fuck, man. Don't nobody give a fuck.
And on
You know?
top of that, and the point I was also trying to make as well, not only is our city suffering, with the migrant crisis where they're getting all the resources and we're just getting tossed to the side. Once again, Lahaina, My We Fought Wildfires, East Palestine, Ohio, same song and dance. But the point I was trying to make is that if U.S. decides to stand with Israel all the way, and it kind of looks like it's heading that way, who's that going to piss off? Hamas. Now that we're aligned with Israel, we might as well be a secondary enemy to Hamas. And Hamas, I'm not saying they have sleeper cells in America ready to go, but they can have different associations. They can have different networks that can decide as a retaliation, they can decide to launch some attacks. I think we're going to be seeing some things in the next 12 to 14 months. And if you go to Twitter or, other outlets, there are other people who are already calling this out, how there can be Hamas linked or network cells in the country or people associated with it who can launch these attacks. So we can see these similar terrorist attacks again. We're done with the whole, oh, America's the safest country. We're so coddled and we're safe. And honestly, man, I might be going off on one, but there's a lot of people that are calling this out. What's in the next 12 to 14 months? The 2024 election. All right. So I think a lot of people just they can't see the forest past the trees, so to speak, on the ramifications if the U.S. decides to fully back Israel and Iran and that retaliation that Hamas can have toward us. Because we don't know who's in this country, who Hamas is linked to that's in this country already. So that's something coming down 2, 3, 4D chess moves down the line that a lot of people just don't see. But there are people already calling that out. That, this between now and the 2024 election, there's going to be a lot of hell breaking loose. So I'm going to just kind of leave it at that. Conspiracy brother, do you have anything else left to add before we move on to our next headline?
Well, I know you've probably seen like on YouTube that meme where like chicks ask they dudes like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire or whatever? And like,
Yeah.
I told my wife, like, honestly, I'll maybe think about the Roman Empire like once a week or so. Like nothing crazy. But I just think about like the similarities between America and the way the Roman Empire fell, right?
Yeah.
And America, the Roman Empire fell from like it fell by having it fell from having its military stretched too thin and using it for political purposes. And so the military is all far spread out. And then the Goths came in and like kind of took care of the place because the military was so. If it wasn't the Goths, it was Hannibal. Then the Goths came after the fact. And so that's what's happening now. Like you look at the U.S. military, how many bases we have. Like America really runs itself like they make it like America's just gonna always be the top dog and ain't gonna never have to worry about nobody else. And that just ain't how it is, bro. That's not how it is. That ain't how it works. You know what I'm saying? That ain't what's going on. The world we live in now, because of this Ukraine thing, especially, like it has made America weaker. Mm-hmm. It is forced. It is, and I'm not even necessarily saying like America should be the only country with power. But what I am saying is like it ain't. You know, it ain't the only country with power. So even if it wanted to be, it ain't. You know what I'm saying? It's not. That ain't how it works anymore. Right? And America has these enemies around the country that they're moving together, right? America and Russia have a historic beef. America and China have a more recent beef, relatively. And like you forcing them to work together now. How can that benefit America? How could that possibly benefit America? When you have two countries who have, in some varying capacity, become enemies of American interests working together, and they're two of the larger countries for manufacturing and all that stuff.
Right on, man. And once again, from a big macro picture, like I mentioned, we don't know who gotten over here the past 2 to 3 years that could have linked to Hamas. And basically, the time is right. If U.S. pisses off Hamas, we could be seeing those certain, maybe not on the same scale, but we can see similar terrorist attacks coming back here. Reminder: our horrible withdrawal from Afghanistan, all the military and artillery we left over there. Biden, the past year or so, or actually his first year in office, draining our oil reserves. Also, the amount of military resources that we shipped over to Ukraine, on top of our woke military that's definitely gotten more feminized, it's gotten more woke, So all of these factors people aren't thinking about, how we've been demasculated as a country. And like you said, we've lost so much power, respect over the past few years. A lot of people aren't thinking about who crossed the border, who could do us harm now. We're not thinking about all the stuff we left in Afghanistan, all the shit we left in Ukraine, how weak our military is. So we're just at the tip of the iceberg. It's great to get all this out, kind of being back with our next episode. But let's move on to our next topic. All right. So here we have Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, our squirrely crypto friend, billionaire, founder of FTX, found guilty of fraud and conspiracy charges. All right, so here we go. From Variety, a federal jury convicted FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy related to the collapse of the cryptocurrency company. Charges carry a maximum prison term of 110 years, according to federal prosecutors. The jury verdict Thursday came after a trial of a little over a month in federal court in New York City. The U.S. government alleged Bankman-Fried, 31, had cheated investors and customers out of the upwards of $10 billion through FTX and his crypto trading firm Alameda Research. The case has attracted widespread public interest, as well as attention in Hollywood. Bankman-Fried's spectacular fall has already spurred multiple documentaries and widely expected to be the fodder of future movie and TV series, of course. Amazon was quick to put an FTX limited series project in development last year from the Russo brothers. I think they directed the Avengers, Marvel movies. Amazon-based AGBO Studios and writer David Weil, creator of Hunters. According to prosecutors, Bankman-Fried, known as SBF, perpetrated a wide-ranging scheme to misappropriate billions of dollars of customer funds deposited with FTX to mislead investors and lenders to FTX and Alameda Research. During the trial, Bankman-Fried, over the course of 4 days, testifying that he never committed fraud and never intended to defraud FTX customers. Bankman-Fried's sentencing has been set for March 28, 2024, following the verdict. And once again, they conveniently leave out that millions of dollars went funneled into the Democratic Party. They failed to kind of mention that. Following the jury's verdict, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams of the Southern District of New York said in a statement, SBF perpetrated one of the biggest financial frauds in American history, multi-billionaire dollar scheme designed to make him king of crypto. But while the cryptocurrency industry might be new and the players like SBF might be new, this kind of corruption is as old as time. This case has always been about lying, cheating, stealing, and we have no patience for that. About to scroll down, but I think my computer froze. Conspiracy brother, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm scrolling now. Hold on. FTX collapse came after crypto news of the data site CoinDesk in November 2022. Blah, blah, blah. December 2022, Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas. Everybody remembers that. Set on a $250 million bond. At the November 2nd verdict, Bankman-Fried was convicted of 2 counts of wire fraud conspiracy, 2 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering, each of which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. He was also convicted of conspiracy to commit commodities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, each of which carries a maximum prison sentence of 5 years. I think there's more to the article, but computer's slowing up again. All right. This kind of just goes into his history, blah, blah, blah. But Conspiracy brother, I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Once again, I'm kind of getting Ghislaine Maxwell kind of vibes. Like there's a lot to this scheme, and I feel like while he was maybe one of the key factors or masterminds part of it, I'm happy that he's getting this, verdict. He's not getting a slap on the wrist. He's not getting the Hunter Biden treatment. But at the same time, I feel like there's the Democratic Party, there's a lot of other organizations that are kind of behind or in league with him. And I can't help but feel like they're dumping it all on him. Yeah, he's gonna get thrown through the ringer, but kind of like with Ghislaine Maxwell, can we see that Epstein plane log? I want to see the client list, but instead we're just getting SBF. But I want to know the people behind SBF, same as I want to know the people that are on the Epstein client log. You know what I mean? That's how I'm kind of feeling right now. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, they already showed like how he was doing money laundering for Ukraine, and like they was donating money to the U.S. was giving money to Ukraine, and then Ukraine was investing the money with him, and then he was giving the money to the Democratic Party, right? So I'm sure unless he's in a position where he's gonna start talking, or somebody thinks he's gonna start talking, he'll probably be taken care of. Because, like you said, Ghislaine Maxwell is like in a country club, like
right.
she's not even nowhere like. She ain't even nowhere like tough.
She living better than she living better than Martha Stewart when she went to jail.
Right. And so like it ain't even no, man, nobody gets held accountable. Even like you said with the Hunter Biden stuff, like nobody gets held accountable but the people, bro. Like on the ground, the people get held accountable. I know we're not talking about it today, but look at the shit with Jamal Bowman. He pulled the firearm to try to disrupt congressional hearing.
That motherfucker.
And nothing about it, right? They're gonna give him like probation for 3 months or like a misdemeanor or whatever. But like when the people did that in January 6th, they tried to put them in jail for years, at least months in jail, for essentially doing the same thing, right? Like because we've seen how a lot of that stuff was like recorded in a way to make it look as bad as it can be. Not to mention a lot of the people involved were FBI agents or some other type of government employees. And so like that's just what you see. Like the only people that suffer any consequences for this type of behavior is regular everyday American people. It's not the politicians, it's not their lackeys, it ain't none of that shit. It's just the people.
And to your point, oh, you want to keep going? Sorry.
Oh no, I'm good. You can go.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned what you mentioned with January 6th, because I mean, it's one of those things where once again, they're setting SBF as he was the face of FTX, so naturally he's the face, the public figure of the downfall. He's the fall guy. Same with Ghislaine Maxwell, because I feel like with January 6th, if this was any other president besides Donald Trump, they would have literally just maybe given like a disorderly conduct fine, fined a few hundred people, fined the president. But of course, we got this whole sort of racket, sort of like everybody's getting investigated, everybody's getting the book thrown at them.
And this
but
is
with
why
these cases, you got a few,
this is why when it comes to the stuff we was talking about with Israel earlier, this is why that's such a big deal for me, because when it's our turn to actually somebody has to suffer consequences, it ain't never, ever, ever going to be the people in power. So like the article I was talking about on Fox News, where they was saying like billionaires are pulling their money out of these Ivy League schools, and like people are cheering, and it's like, okay, bro, cool. Like, yeah, you have Schadenfreude about it or whatever. You might be like, hey, that's what they get. But at the end of the day, we got to understand the people that's going to really suffer is us. It ain't going to be nobody else. It's just going to be us. It's us. You know what I'm saying? It's us alone that's going to suffer. And so we allow the government to have all these different powers and shit like that. And it bites us in the long run. It burns us. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? We get burnt by it
yeah.
because we're the only ones that are at the mercy of these people. Everybody else good. So,
Yeah, man. And once again, I'm a bit biased. You could probably hear that. It's in my title, for God's sakes, conservative brother daily. But I would just love to see the same January 6th level intense investigation with SBF as well as Ghislaine Maxwell. Why aren't we peeling back the layers and seeing everybody involved in the conspiracy? Because it wasn't just him. They acting like he did everything. They acting like Ghislaine did everything. So when I hear that, it's a, when they say, oh, the justice system, there's no double standard. We treat conservatives and the Democrats the same. Bullshit. Give me a January 6th level investigation and throw in the book at SBF or Ghislaine Maxwell. If not, shut the fuck up. It just blows my mind. So all right, moving on. Next, we have some updates. Last few days, Yemen has officially joined the conflict with Israel and Palestine. I'm not as well versed on this topic. I know we had a guy in the group chat that kind of mentioned this. But conspiracy brother, do you have any insight on this or perspective? I can kind of read on this if you want.
um read on it a little bit. All I had heard about it was that the Houthis in Yemen were attempting to aid, but I didn't really get a chance to do a lot of my own research.
Okay, this comes from Reuters on October 31st. Yemen's Houthis have waded into the Israel-Hamas war, raging more than 1,000 miles from their seat of power in Sana'a, declaring on Tuesday they had fired drones and missiles at Israel in attacks that highlight the regional risks of the conflict. Part of the axis of resistance backed by Iran, the Houthis have rallied behind the Palestinians since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. Excuse me, opening a new front, opening a new front for a movement that has waged war for 8 years with Saudi-led coalition in the Gulf. Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Saree said in a televised statement the group had launched a large number of ballistic missiles and drones toward Israel. There will be much more such attacks to come to help Palestinians to victory. The statement confirmed the widening scope of conflict that has unnerved states, including the world's biggest oil exporter, Saudi Arabia, hardening fears of a spillover as Israel seeks to destroy Hamas in its Gaza Strip stronghold. Saree that said it was the Houthis' third attack on Israel since the start of the conflict, appearing to confirm they were behind a drone attack on October 28th that resulted in blasts in Egypt and was blamed by Israel on the Houthis in October 19th incident in which U.S. Navy intercepted 3 cruise missiles. Israeli National Security Advisor, I'm not going to pronounce that name, said the Houthi attacks were intolerable but declined to elaborate when asked how Israel might respond. The Houthi slogan is "Death to America, Death to Israel, Curse the Jews, and Victory to Islam." Once again, as we were doing before, I'll read the last of this paragraph. The Houthis are a formidable part of the axis of resistance, which opposes Israel and the U.S. and has been waging attacks across the region since October 7th. Iran-backed Iraqi militias have been firing at the U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, while Lebanon's Hezbollah has been exchanging fire with Israeli forces at the Lebanese-Israeli border. The Houthis have demonstrated their missile and drone capabilities during the Yemen war and attacks on Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The Saudi-led coalition accuses Iran of arming, training, funding the Houthis. The group denies being an Iranian proxy and says it develops its own weapons. The U.S., Israel's main ally, I warned about this, has deployed aircraft carriers as a deterrent to prevent Gaza conflict from spreading. Iran has also said it does not want the war to spread, but Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amarali Bolala Dolabhali, man, on Tuesday indicated Tehran allies could act further. So, conspiracy brother, looks like, man, like we were talking about earlier, we heading into World War III, man. I'm not going to go through all this. I'll link all these articles in the video upload description. But yeah, man, and once again, two questions I like to ask when shit popping off. Who does this benefit? What organization benefits from this? And what are they distracting us from? All right. So, conspiracy brother, feel free to give me your take on this. There's a lot going on. World War III vibes. But what you got on this?
Well, like you said, with who benefits, right? The whole reason I was watching this video, I think it was Jimmy Dore, but it was Dan Cohen talking about it. But it might have been Breakthrough News. It was like a 6-minute thing. I might try to post it in here and play it.
All right. Well, yeah, you could.
But like they're talking about how. Let me see if I can find it. They were talking about how the U.S. uses Israel in order to essentially have like a voice in the region.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And you know what that does is it makes a situation where the U.S. can never they can never leave Israel because they need that territory too much. It's too beneficial for them. So let me see. This is. Want me to text it to you, or should I?
Send it to me.
Yeah, I can just put it in the group me because then I can pull it up.
Yeah, send it to me, group me, then I'll throw it up on here.
Because let's see, it's like a 6-minute video, but like when you look at it and try to understand, because like you always think like, how come America, like, why are they so invested in what goes on in Europe or not Europe, but in the Middle East, and like, why are they so concerned with that shit?
Mm-hmm.
And this really sheds a lot of light on it. I just posted it, and it sheds a lot of light on it.
I'm pulling it up now. I'm about to throw it up now. You want to watch? It's 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 6 minutes. So we can pull it up. I think it's from Breakthrough News.
Okay, yeah, give me a few minutes. It's still loading, but so yeah, overall that video basically describes how there's just like a lot of these shadow loyalties and I guess backroom deals to.
Yeah, well, yeah, they talk about that, and see, that's the problem too. Like Anthony Blinken, he was saying something because he's Jewish. And he said something like, when he looks at the situation in Israel, he looks at it as a Jew and not as a diplomat, right? And like, that's not okay, bro. You an American diplomat primarily, right? You were born in this country. This is where your allegiance needs to be. And that's the problem when you have so many people who, and this is not an anti-immigrant thing, but that's the problem when you have so many people who have a dual allegiance to some other country. Like, it's cool if you feel like, hey, you know, this is where my people from and I still care about this country. But like, you see this a lot in South Florida too, with like a lot of the Cubans and stuff, where they want to go out and, oh, we got to get rid of communism and socialism and we got to go and try to overthrow Cuba and shit. And it's like, bro, y'all don't care because that's y'all's country. And so if America fall apart, I ain't got nowhere else I can go. You know what I'm saying? My people don't have nowhere else they can go. My people are American. You know what I'm saying? And so my concern is that this country is stable. I'm not concerned with all this other shit. But you have all these different people, and this is what you saw during the Cold War, when all those folks in Poland and Eastern Europe would come to America, and they would try to exact all this political energy on doing what they thought was best for their own personal interest. It's fucked up, man, but we got to have some people in office who are America first, who care
Yeah.
about the interests of the American people, not the elites, not corporations, not neocon and neoliberal, but for the people.
Yeah, it's world police syndrome, man. And I can't even remember, since the almost since the beginning of our founding. Maybe it started like in the early 1900s where we became very kind of warmongery, let's go to these different countries, World War One, you know. Maybe kind of started, I think, honestly, 1913 with Woodrow Wilson, his role in formation of the Fed, But yeah, I could harp on that, man. But yeah, let's go ahead and watch it. It's only 6 minutes. Our podcasts are long as hell anyway. We'll probably be here 2 to 3 hours. Let's go ahead and how you doing on time, by the way, Conspiracy Brother? Not that we're gonna take
I'm
3
good.
hours.
We're an hour in,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to go, half an hour longer, or whatever you feel like doing, man, it's all
Yeah, I
good.
think we
We're
could
an
get at
hour
least
in though.
another hour in or so. No rush. But yeah, let me go ahead and play this. Let me know if the audio's coming through.
Here's where the U.S. supports Israel no matter what. The U.S.-Israel
hear it.
relationship is unlike any other relationship the U.S. has. Israel is by far the biggest recipient of U.S. foreign aid in the world. Despite constituting about 0.01% of the world population, they've received 30% of all U.S. foreign aid since World War II. They get about $4 billion every year and have received almost $300 billion since 1945 when you adjust for inflation, which is enough money to end world hunger. But what's more shocking is that this support is unconditional. It goes through every year, basically unanimously. Even right now, when we see Israel committing atrocity after atrocity and the entire world condemning the massacre of Gaza, the US government is actually trying to send more money to Israel. The US ruling class also gives unconditional diplomatic cover for Israel. Despite repeated attempts by the international community to prosecute Israel for its violations of international law, they can't. Why? Because the United States always comes in to protect Israel. For example, during Israel's 2014 massacre of Gaza, the United Nations Human Rights Council voted on a resolution to denounce Israel's massacre. Of the 38 countries on the council, the United States was the only country to vote no. The U.S. is almost always one of a handful of countries that votes against UN resolutions condemning Israel, while the rest of the world overwhelmingly votes the other way. So why does the U.S. do this? Well, the crux of it is that the U.S. is an empire. It has over 1,000 military bases littered all around the world, military units that can invade any corner of the globe in a matter of hours. Its goal, like every other empire in history, is to control the world's resources and markets and force its will on the entire world. The Middle East is especially important to any empire because that's where so much oil and global trade passes through. Israel is essentially America's attack dog in the Middle East. Any job that the US can't do or would look too imperialistic to do, Israel carries out on its behalf. Israel has played a crucial role in attacking and destabilizing independent Arab governments determined to defy US dictates. In 1967, Israel attacked two such governments in Syria and Egypt in a surprise invasion. Israel's narrative has always been that they launched a preemptive strike to prevent an impending Arab genocide of Jews, but in reality, Israel just wanted to take Arab land. Matthew Peled, one of Israel's commanders in the Six-Day War, told the Israeli newspaper
The video
Haaretz
went away, but I
that
can
the
still hear it.
danger of genocide was hanging over us in June 1967,
How about
and
now?
that Israel was fighting for its physical
No,
existence.
it's like the screen
Real
stopped
blood
sharing. I can
was
still hear
born
it
and
though.
developed after the war. This invasion was crucial at a time when 550,000 American troops were bogged down in Vietnam fighting the spread of socialism there. The Library of Congress study of the Israeli war recounted, quote, the traumatic defeat of the Syrians and Egyptians in the June 1967 war with Israel discredited the radical socialist regimes of Nasser's Egypt and Ba'athist Syria. The defeat strengthened the hands of the moderates and the rightists. In 1981, Israel bombed an Iraqi nuclear power plant with U.S. approval at a time when the U.S. was publicly supporting Iraq in the Iraq
Okay, you got to
war.
share.
Secretly,
Let me
the
share
U.S.
it.
wanted both governments to destroy each other, but couldn't be seen as playing such an intentionally destabilizing
You got to
role.
confirm my
In
share.
1982,
Okay.
Israel invaded Lebanon with the full support and funding from the United States in an attempt to crush the Palestinian resistance there and appoint an ultra-right-wing Lebanese phalangist as president. The U.S. would end up sending Marines in to aid this effort, only to be defeated by the Lebanese resistance forces. Israel also has a long history of doing the empire's bidding outside of the Middle East. Israel continued to arm and support apartheid South Africa even after it became too unpopular for the US to do so. Israel even built an electrified fence around Namibia, then a South African colony, to protect it from neighboring Angolan liberation forces. Israeli police helped train torturers in the US-backed Pinochet dictatorship in Chile. They trained the right-wing Guatemalan army that was committing genocide against indigenous people. Israel has also been a loyal partner in the US war on terror. The Islamophobic hysteria following 9/11 gave the US an excuse to attack any country that stood against its interests in the region, especially Iran. While the US has been careful not to directly strike Iran, Israel has served a very useful purpose by continuing to bully and harass Iran, assassinating its nuclear scientists, seizing Iranian ships, and providing intelligence on Iran through massive spy networks. Israel also routinely bombs Syria, a country the US attempted to topple in 2011. Just by being there, Israel gives the US a constant excuse to intervene in the region under the guise of protecting Israel. As Joe Biden once put it,
were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region.
Israel is so central to the function of the empire that any kind of willing departure from Israel by the US ruling class is basically out of the question. While many people understandably feel pessimistic about liberating Palestine, while Israel is supported by such a tremendous superpower, consider this. Public support for Israel has rapidly declined in the US in the last few years. Americans are starting to see what their tax dollars are paying for, and they're standing up and saying, not in our name. There's a growing divide between the politicians who staunchly support Israel and their constituents who see Israel for what it is. If this divide continues to grow, it could fundamentally break people's confidence in these politicians and lead to a larger breakdown in the legitimacy of the political system. And the same could be said about any anti-imperialist struggle. Whether it's the struggle to end the murderous and archaic blockade on Cuba, the struggle to end the murderous and archaic sanctions regimes against Venezuela, Iran, or Korea, or the struggle to end the siege on Gaza, the entire world is fed up with US hegemony and world policing. If these movements link arms and see themselves as one common struggle, no force on earth can stop them.
Wow. So, so I think this is great. We need to play this for a lot of our kind of pro-Israel, riled up, conservative Republican friends. Because once again, Israel has a lot of blood on their hands too. And once again, I still condemn Hamas.
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use.
Right. I mean, I feel like that's the thing. Like, we can say both of those things, right? Like,
right.
Thinking about
nothing more than a microphone.
The shit. Wait, hold
on. Still playing. I'm trying to. Woo. All right. Okay, we're back.
The problem. No matter what type of hearing aid you use or what treatments you try, you're only treating the symptoms.
I don't want a hearing aid. Okay. All right. All right. So, okay, cool. Yeah, you were saying conspiracy, brother?
Just like they were talking about with the shit with Israel and giving weapons to apartheid South Africa. Like, that's why South Africa ain't cool with them. But what I was really going to say is, I feel like the fact that Joe Biden says some blatant shit, like, if Israel didn't exist, we would need to invent one. Like, that alone tells me that it's some shit I don't need to be, like, I hate to be so juvenile in my rationalization to say, like, well, if Joe Biden supported it, it must be bad. Because in general, like, that can't be your standard for everything. Mm-hmm. But, like, in a lot of shit that's more complex than 2 + 2 is 4, that's a good enough justification not to do the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, obviously, we know, like, if Joe Biden said, hey, everybody, hold your breath. Okay, nah, bro. I'm not going to hold my breath. Like, I need to breathe to live. You know what I'm saying? But, like, the shot shit. Bro, I'm not getting that fucking shot. And so I didn't. And he's sitting there, hey, we need everybody. Bro, I'm not getting no fucking shot.
My patience
kind of level
is
of complexity we have to assign to this shit. So the fact that Joe Biden, when he was coherent, right, he wasn't demented. He wasn't a fucking walking corpse. He was of sound mind, at least as much as he ever has been. And he said, hey, if Israel didn't exist, we need to create one. That's a fucking problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to change that. You see what I'm saying?
When people show you who they are, believe them. So once
Hey,
again,
100%, man.
I'm with
100%.
I'm with you. America first. People say, "Oh, pro-Palestine. I stand with Palestine." Like, no, I condemn Hamas. I condemn. Obviously, I'm sympathetic to what the innocent Palestinian civilians are going through. But I'm still not going to condone the amount of lives they lost. I stand with the innocent Israeli citizens. I don't stand with the Israeli government. And that's what a lot of people just don't understand. And even with BLM really showed their colors. We've called BLM out on multiple occasions, and they're the ones that are like openly,
Right.
they're just, and you got protests in Boston and Sydney, Australia. You're chanting "Gas the Jews," and we're looking at like, hey, that's y'all. And you got Jonathan Greenblatt over the ADL, who's like, I'm so appalled, and how could you, trying to call out BLM? And it's like, bro, these are your people. This is you. These were people y'all were supporting for years, and they're on the extreme side of like kill the Jews. But then you got everybody over here on the right acting like Israel is innocent. And it's like both of y'all are crazy. We calling all your shit out,
Right.
So I'll get on another tangent again, man. But all right, moving forward, we have this. We'll be a little more brief with this one. Another Reuters update on Turkey. So yeah, it's getting World War III-ish. So apparently Turkey over here. I'll keep this brief. Turkey condemns attack. Who got attacked now? Turkey condemns attack on Turkish Palestinian hospital in Gaza. Once again, I don't know if this is the same hospital that they ended up learning was not an attack from Israel, and they ended up just blowing up a parking lot. But do you know anything about this conspiracy, brother? I don't know if we want to dive in on this or not.
With Turkey wading into the situation?
Yeah.
So basically, like what the headline says, Turkey has some kind of diplomatic, because Turkey is also a Muslim country.
Uh-huh.
They might be a secular country, like on paper, but they have a high Muslim population. They were the head of the Ottoman Empire, which was the most recent caliphate of like Islam or whatever. They were like the head of the caliphate of the Muslim empire, like global empire. And so there was a Turkish hospital in Gaza that was bombed. And so Turkey might potentially take action because, this is attacking Turkish civilians who are offering like medical assistance. And an interesting thing I saw somebody put up and said, if Turkey activates Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which says if one member of NATO is attacked, all the members are duty bound to act in defense. Would that mean the U.S. would have to start attacking Israel? Because, U.S. is bound, at least theoretically, by Article 5. And so it was a funny idea, like a funny thought, because as we saw, like the U.S. is one of the top suppliers of aid, financial and military, to Israel. And so like you would have a NATO country, Turkey, who was essentially asking for defense and aid in a retaliatory action against an aggressor nation, which would be Israel in this case, and the U.S. is its largest funder. And so I like chaos. I've said that before, and you heard me say that before. So I love chaos, and so I really am intrigued by the prospect of that.
Well put, man. I wasn't that up on Turkey's role in their current politics, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. Lord, there's just so many. It's just so many, so many plates to spin. A lot of balls to juggle, if you will. All this shit going on. So yeah, all right. So next topic we got. 5 things. I don't even remember what this article is about. So bear with me. Computer's running a little slow. 5 things. Oh, yep, here we go. The GOP speaker. So I think one of our second or third of the last episodes earlier this year, there was that whole House GOP speaker fiasco. I thought it was brilliant. Like you, conspiracy brother, I do like chaos because when the Democrats or the elites in general, the Uniparty, Rhino, Republicans, when they go, this is a threat to our democracy, this is chaos. What they mean is this is a threat to our establishment, Washington business as usual, special interests, and you're getting in the way of that. So just remember that every time you hear there's a threat to our democracy, it's a threat. This is chaos. This is threatening the status quo, our backroom deals that screws the American people over and helps us get rich. So I loved the Matt Gaetz and I think the 8 or 9 Republican holdouts in January. I thought that was brilliant. All right. And also like obviously we're gonna get into Kevin McCarthy getting ousted, a few weeks ago. But who is Mike Johnson? All right. What 5 things we need to know about the new House Speaker? All right. So sorry. Back. All right. So Mike Johnson, who is this new House Speaker? He's a Republican from Louisiana, serving 4th term. House Republican Vice Chairman, voted to overturn 2020 election. All right, so they're already coming after him with the propaganda. Former senior legal counsel for the religious liberty group Alliance Alliance Defense Fund. All right, so this is NBC News. So get ready for their bias. Republicans elected a new Speaker of the House on Wednesday, Rep. Mike Johnson, ending 22 days of a paralyzed chamber after a group of rebels overthrew Rep. Kevin McCarthy. So I just love how they just spin everything to chaos, the rebels, and all that. Where 2 years ago, AOC and other members of the squad, they could have forced the vote to keep Pelosi at bay and force her to give Medicare for all, which they didn't. Instead, they all fell in line and became part of the swamp. So even though I have a lot of issues with the Republicans, Rhinos, and even Matt Gaetz, I still respect what they did, what the Democrats should have did 2 years ago prior. All right, so at least they're willing to be, the progressive right, if you will. They're trying to at least add some chaos to do some things different versus the Democrats who just fall in line with the cult. So Johnson was nominated Tuesday after 3 previous nominations flamed out. He unified the fractious Republican conference, winning votes from right-wing detractors of McCarthy, as well as centrist Republicans who opposed Rep. Jim Jordan. The little-known congressman was first elected in 2016, representing a solidly Republican part of the North and the Western Louisiana. He has ascended through the ranks, chairing the Conservative Republican Study Committee and holding the position of the House Republican Conference Vice Chair. Boring. He sits on the Judiciary Committee and chairs a subcommittee on the Constitution, the Armed Services Committee, and the newly created Select Committee on Weaponization of the Federal Government. I do fucks with that committee. Here are 5 things you need to know. I'm just gonna read the bold part. His role in promoting 2020 election denial. All right. Let's see here. His solidly conservative voting record. His opposition to abortion and LGBTQ rights. So, it's very left-leaning NBC News, and they're just trying to throw these kind of smears. Once again, I'm sure I have a lot of beefs with the guy as well. But I thought this was Yahoo News, not NBC. He has Trump's stamp of approval, sort of. A relatively inexperienced speaker. Okay, that's just sort of. Yeah, I'm not going to read all this, but all right, conspiracy brother, your thoughts? I don't know if you've done any investigation into this guy. I haven't heard of him before he was elected, so I'm still very suspect on him as well. Is he a rhino? Is he going to be part of the Uniparty? Is he going to be a wild card? What are your thoughts on this guy?
I think he may do some things that grassroots Republicans like. But I also think that, he's very pro-Israel, uncomfortably so, in my opinion. And like I said, not necessarily because I dislike Israel or whatever. But for me, it's just a matter of
Hello? Conspiracy brother, you there? Hey, conspiracy brother, you dropped off. Can't hear you. I don't see your voice icon moving. All right. Okay, we lost conspiracy brother. Looks like he's here, but his audio doesn't seem to be working. All right. So I guess while he returns back, once again, I'll just read a little bit more of the article since I'm not as well versed on this guy. So I'll go back to the 5 things you should know about him, even though just check the NBC bias at the door. His role in promoting the 2020 election denial. Johnson is a constitutional lawyer who has used his talent to craft some creative and controversial theories. His most notable is his role in devising an argument aimed at keeping Donald Trump in power, even though he lost the 2020 election. NY Times article last year called Johnson the most important architect of the Electoral College objections. Let's see here. Objections on January 6, 2021. His argument of colleagues that was that certain states changed their voting procedures during the COVID-19 pandemic were unconstitutional, an argument that became more palatable to lawmakers than the fabricated claims of mass fraud. In all, 147 Republicans voted to block the certification of Joe Biden electors. See here. Joe Biden electors in mid-November 2020. Johnson gave a radio interview and echoed a discredited conspiracy theory involving Hugo Chavez and Dominion voting systems. I'm a little biased, y'all, but, there is some truth to Trump getting the election stolen. All right. That's a whole nother podcast. In every election in American history, there's some sort of small element of fraud or irregularity, but we have it on a broad scale. We have a software system that is used all around the country that is suspect because it came from Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. When you have testimonials of people that like this, but in large number, it begs to be litigated and investigated. I fucks with that because wasn't it the Democrats who said their 2000 election, Bush election was stolen? 2004 election was stolen. 2016 was stolen. And all of a sudden, 2020 is the most secure election. Like, I think there was fraud and I think there's a level of fraud in every election. And it just kind of blows my mind how basically they're able to just up and say, like, well, it's only election fraud when we lose, but as soon as we win, it's best fraud ever. It was the best, fair, most secure election. And look up this movie called Hacking Democracy. Democrats are all over this. They talked all about the issues of voting machines. Hacking Democracy is like a 2006 documentary, I think, on HBO. So they were all about this. But as soon as it doesn't work to their advantage, everything works just fine. But y'all clearly got cheated out in the past, and that's the thing I can't figure out. I can go in on this. All right, so till conspiracy brother gets back, I'll continue reading this. Let's see here. Okay, so Mike Johnson. Hold on a second, y'all. On Tuesday night, after he was nominated, Johnson declined to respond to a question about his role in the election objections. Text and conspiracy, brother. Let's see here. In the Trump presidency.
My bad. My internet seems like it must have had an issue. If you don't mind, though, I wanted to say, because it was messing up. But I wanted to say, like, he may do a couple nice things for the Republican base. But like I said, he still was talking about trying to give Israel all this money. And so it's still going to be a situation where you're looking at somebody who has a greater interest in, funding foreign incidences, foreign governments, whether it be allies or not, and funding the American people. Because like when you hear conservatives, right, fiscal conservatives say shit like, and this is why at least libertarians they're consistent, right? They're logically consistent in what they do. Because a libertarian will say, hey, we can't afford to do all these government programs. We should have a smaller government, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But at the same time, they'll also say, I'm not paying money to fund a war in another country either. You know what I'm saying? Where the neocons want to say, hey, we can't afford to fix up East Palestine, Ohio, or we can't afford to give more than $700 per household to families from the Maui wildfires. We're going to give billions of dollars on top of billions of dollars to foreign countries and foreign governments. You know what I'm saying? It's just logically inconsistent.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, man. That kind of put things in very great perspective on that. So I probably want to just maybe leave that there. But yeah, I was just sort of kind of reading into his article and stuff. But you kind of, you pretty much hit all the, points on this. Mike Johnson. Once again, he seems pretty establishment. He's going to do a lot of things, like you said, the Republican base is going to like. But we still have to just, keep our eyes open just to things like that. I'm not sure how he's going to mesh with Matt Gaetz. Trying to remember how Matt Gaetz kind of felt about, I guess he voted for him in addition, or maybe like they still had enough votes to get him in. But we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see about this guy. All right. So moving forward, like I said, we missed a lot these past few months. We got a few headlines left, but one thing I want to talk about is RFK goes independent. All right. And once again, when he announced back earlier this year, he was going as a Democrat. He was running for president as a Democrat. Everybody's going like, are you insane? Like, your Democrat party cannot stand you. And they're just super establishment are going to come after you. So took him a while to get the memo. We're also going to get to Cornel West as well. He's next up here. We definitely got to talk about Cornel. But RFK launches 2024 bid. Ain't really a whole lot I got to read into this article. But overall, conspiracy brother, what's been your thoughts on his campaign so far? Some people kind of like with Cornel saying like, we know he's not going to win, but this is a way for him to get a really good platform to talk about a lot of his issues. He's he's definitely he's anti-war in some aspects. Obviously, with his Israel development, he's gotten a lot more pro-Israel, unfortunately, even though he does call out Big Pharma, he does call out parts of the establishment. He's been very well with COVID issues. But, he's independent now. So he has some rough roads ahead. So, Conspiracy Brother, what's your thoughts on RFK with his run as an independent now?
So, I was supportive of what he was doing, and I thought, like what you said, his take on COVID and a lot of this shit with war was like really good. So it's like, okay. But like his take on Israel is so crazy that I almost can't take the shit serious?
Yeah.
Like, when I say the shit, I mean like his campaign, because you're in lockstep with the establishment on Israel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about actually? You know what I'm saying? How do you expect me to believe that you're legitimately a a a person who is really anti-establishment when your views about the conflict in Israel are totally in line with the establishment view and talking point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was really disappointed because I was kind of Cornel West still my top voting pick. You know, RFK was kind of a close second, but yeah, I mean RFK is probably below Trump right now with me because that he kind of lost me with the pro-Israel stance. He's also kind of a classic Democrat gun grabber. There's some
Right.
aspects of the climate change agenda that he kind of dismisses, or obviously the World Economic Forum and kind of they're playing with climate change. He calls that out. There's other aspects where he's still kind of convinced that we're all going to die in 3 to 5 years. But he's done some great stuff, at least on the environmental side. I remember him. There's things as far as like he was able to work with like coal miner families, and there were other things around the country as far as like cleanups and very traditional, kind of like East Palestine, Ohio type real climate issues and emergencies that he would launch class action lawsuits, and he's done a lot of great work in the past. But like you said, I mean, he's still a liberal, and he has a lot of these Israel takes are not that good as well. And once again, I'm not going to click on any of these articles, but we could just kind of see here, just kind of the latest with him. RFK pulls more votes from Trump than Biden in a three-way race poll. I don't know so much about that. Trump's still very far ahead of Biden and anybody else. But yeah, I think this is kind of one of those things where I don't think RFK is obviously going to win. And I think that RFK voters, most of them aren't going to vote for Trump anyway. And most of them weren't going to vote for Biden anyway. So I don't really believe the whole, well, if you vote for RFK or for Cornel, then that's a vote away from Biden. I think a lot of those voters weren't going to vote for Biden anyway. What do I know? But one thing that Sabby Sabs talked about that I kind of want to get into with Cornel is that I don't know if you Sabby Sabs from Revolutionary Black Network. She has very long podcasts. I'm not able to listen to them all the time. She has very long, like town hall.
Oh yeah, they'd be like 3 hours. Yeah,
4 or 5 hours. But I got around to listening to one last week where they talked about Cornel West going independent, and she brought up a really good point on how a lot of people, like not just black people, but white liberals especially, they go in on Cornel West going independent, and like they give Cornel West basically a lot more shit than RFK Jr. And I'm gonna even call out even Jimmy Dore on this, because I think with the last interview with Jimmy Dore, the fact that they kind of disagree with some aspects of COVID, I get it. Cornel West is still pretty. He won't really acknowledge the danger of the COVID tyranny and the mask and the vaccine. Cornel West has a bit of Trump derangement syndrome where he thinks Biden is just a better option than Trump, and he doesn't see anything white supremacy wrong with Biden. And I could kind of forgive him for that, but I think with Jimmy was kind of nasty with him as far as like made a level of disrespect from that interview, and I feel like Jimmy wouldn't give that same sort of pushback or sort of dismissal of RFK. RFK has a lot of issues, especially RFK's. I mean, Jimmy Dore's pro Palestine. He's super pro Palestine right now. So I could see him definitely having beefs with RFK with that. But I feel like a lot of people in general are giving Cornel West more shit, or they're letting RFK get away with things that they don't let Cornel West get away with. And even what's one thing Sabby Sabs called out was how RFK was giving out RFK had a fundraiser where it was $1,000 a plate. All right, $1,000 a plate. You got to, you're running for president. You got to raise money. Meanwhile, Cornel West, he had fundraisers for $100 a plate or up to $100 a plate. And you had niggas come out the woodwork just finding any little bitty thing to kind of shit on Cornel West about, including like why he got to charge for a fundraiser to raise money. Motherfucker, he's running for president. Like, you got to raise money. You can't run for free. And there were literally people calling in on Sabby Sab's town hall. She had to call them out like, you cannot run for free. And she was like calling them out live when they were calling in. Like, he had $100 plate fundraiser, but RFK has $1,000 plate raiser, and they don't say shit. So feel free, conspiracy brother, give me your thoughts on maybe how RFK is getting some treatment better than Cornel, or just your overall thoughts on Cornel running independent. I'm all over the place.
So I think, like, when you look at, I think Jimmy did actually have a little beef with RFK. I didn't get to watch his RFK interview after he made his stance on Palestine. No, so I could be wrong. Okay. But like the thing that I thought was interesting about the way the Cornel West interview went is like this. When Cornel West was talking to Anderson Cooper, who, Vanderbilt heir, worked for the CIA, right? Anderson Cooper.
Ooh, wow.
He called him Brother Anderson and all this shit. But when Jimmy is asking him questions about different things he's doing tactically, he was blowing up on Jimmy. It was like, bro, what is going on? Like, Jimmy was like, who's helping you do your campaign? Who's helping you with your messaging? Like, because this is bad messaging. And he was like indignant about it. Like, nobody helping me. I'm my own man, brother. And look, don't get me wrong, bro. I get it. But like, the reason why Jimmy was asking Dr. West those questions is because we know he's smart. I mean, right. Dr. Cornel West may be one of the most brilliant individuals alive in modern times, just objectively, right? But the way his campaign was being managed was so bad. The decisions he was making was so bad. Like, you want to assume like it's somebody else's fault. It can't be your fault because you're too smart. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even look at the whole thing with hiring Peter Dowell to be your campaign manager.
Oh yeah, that was the first. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, what are you doing? And so now, like a lot of people are saying, Cornel West went from being on like 20-something ballots around the country as a member of the Green Party to now he's on no ballots because he's an independent.
Yeah.
And now Peter Dowell said, okay, I got to step back from the campaign because I'm stepping back because of some kind of health emergency or some shit. When up to this point, all he's done was deal with Democrats. He was a member of like a Christian Syrian military force trained by the U.S. who worked for Israel to like kill Muslims and shit.
Hell, he was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager 2016. Right. And all the propaganda.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he's never been a campaign manager of a winning campaign. Like, honestly, he ain't never been the manager of a winning campaign. And so, why do you make this dude your campaign manager? Yeah, people can change, man. Yes, everybody can change. But like, bro, if you're trying to do something serious, I'm speaking to Dr. West now. If you're trying to do something serious for the people, you don't have this guy. I don't care how apologetic he might have been. I don't care what you think he could bring to the table as far as expertise in running for office or managing campaigns for office. But he got to sit on the sideline, bro. You know, just like when Hillary Clinton was friends with Ronald Byrd, who was that senator from West Virginia, who was a Grand Wizard in the Ku Klux Klan or the Grand Dragon, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was like, man, you friends with a KKK member.
Right.
And all the Democrats and the liberals tried to say, well, you know, he apologized. And motherfuckers even said like he was just trying to meet friends. Like he had just moved to West Virginia, like to a new town. And so that was the way that you socialized back in the days. Like, bro,
Well,
I
you be
don't
my
care,
friend.
man. If you gotta join the Klan to make friends, bro, you value friendship over justice. And I can't rock with that.
That ain't a friend
You know
I want.
I can't rock with that. You rather have friends than have justice for people, because there was plenty of white people back in them days who said, hey, this ain't right. We're not going to rock with that. I'm not doing it. We're not going to do that. There's plenty of white people who got killed during the civil rights movement, who got beat up, who got harassed, who got arrested. And so that's not an answer for me. That's not an excuse. But like even Joe Biden was friends with Strom Thurmond, right? And I forget the other guy who was a senator who he was real good friends with. Right? Joe Biden has all these connections with these racists from the government. And as I said, if I'm going to hold him to the same standard of, hey, bro, you a racist because you're hanging out with racists, whether they atoned or not, I don't care. I got to have that consistency with Peter Dahl. I have to. You know what I'm saying? You're nothing more than a dyed-in-the-wool liberal who, in my opinion, only objective was to try to weaken the Cornel West campaign so that he would not be a threat to Joe Biden. And Dr. West fell right for it. That's the most generous assessment of that situation that I can have, because it makes absolutely no sense for Dr. West to allow this guy to have anything to do with his campaign at all, let alone be his campaign manager. It makes absolutely no sense.
No, that's base. Yeah, that's base because definitely like I said, I think Jimmy, as far as the interview went, he got a little too emotional. Kind of, he was right to call Jimmy Dore out on some things, but I don't think he would have had that same attitude in some aspects to RFK. But yeah, you're right. He was making these very kind of weird establishment moves, like bringing in Peter Ducey, and just the fact that it's just that, yeah, man. I mean, I'm still down for him, but even on Sabby Sad's podcast. Yep.
Well, yeah, like you said, I want him to be successful. I would like him to be successful. Yeah. But I've gotten to the point where I believe that what he's doing is nothing more than he's going to end up sheepdogging or trying to sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party.
Yep.
That's what Bernie did. I think that's what he's going to end up doing. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. But I know I don't know if you have this on the thing, but just to kind of draw the parallel.
Yeah.
Like with the situation with that senator from California. Right? So, like I talked about, the reason that we're keeping Dianne Feinstein in office, even though she was clearly fucking out of her mind, is because Nancy Pelosi wants Adam Schiff to be the next senator from California. Well, Gavin Newsom says, hey, I'm gonna pick Kamala Harris' replacement to be a black female this time, because the person he appointed to replace her the last time was like a Mexican guy, I believe. I think his name is Salazar, but I can't remember.
Right.
And that's the senator from California now. Right. So then Gavin Newsom says, well, I'll appoint a black female this next time. And so he appoints one, and everybody was nervous that he might pick Carolyn Bass or Karen Bass or
Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee was the shoe-in.
Barbara Lee was the one that was really nervous. Barbara Lee's biggest claim to fame was, huh?
I mean, at least with Barbara Lee, from what I'm saying, I thought she was one of those moderate, middle of the road Democrats. I think she originally voted against the Patriot Act.
She had voted against the war in Iraq. She was like the only person to vote against war in Iraq.
I'll just give her props there. She's a Democrat liberal, but I give her props with that. I would,
and see, that's what it is. Yeah. Like, that's her claim to fame, really, is that she was the only one who was willing to vote against war in Iraq.
Right.
And so So they didn't want her to be the senator because she at least shows that she has a capacity for a conscience. Now, she was fully on board with the war in Iran, in Ukraine, and funding that shit.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it could only go so far, right? But still, right? They didn't want her to have that job. Nancy Pelosi wants Adam Schiff there. So,
Another
what does
white man.
Gavin Newsom do? What does Gavin Newsom do? He appoints a woman. Can't even remember the bitch name now. Pardon my French. But he appoints a black woman who, so you got a black woman, right? Checking 2 boxes because she's black and she's female.
Right.
And she's a member of the LGBT community. So you checking another box. And guess what? She says she's not going to run for re-election. So you open the door for Adam Schiff to be senator now. And so that plays right into their hands. So that's what I'm saying with this shit here.
They got to her. Like, you ain't gonna run for re-election.
And they probably put her up in there with that because she was a lobbyist or whatever. She was a lobbyist.
She came from Emily's list. She's like super pro-abortion, organization as well. Super woke, you know. Yeah.
So you put her there. She's a lobbyist. You tell her, hey, don't run for re-election, but we want you here so we could say that we got a black woman there.
Right.
And then you still gonna let Adam Schiff take the seat.
I didn't even know that.
You see what I'm saying? And so that's the same thing I'm saying here with this situation with Dr. West. I don't know why you would have Peter Dow be your campaign manager. I don't understand that. I don't understand the moves that you're making. He's still the best option for me. I'm probably not going to even vote for president, honestly. Like, legitimately, I'm so far removed from participating in electoral politics at that level, because I just know they're all full of shit, man. And it's like, we don't really have anybody who can actually do what we need them to do. And like, I can't even in good conscience even tell people like, hey, you should vote. Like, because this shit is it's depressing as hell.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, mad at you.
But like, if I have to pick somebody, I'm picking Dr. West.
Right. Very based, man. Very based. Because once again, I mean, he has great ideas. He has a great academic mind. Just some of my concern is the fact that a lot of that may not always transfer directly into a role of leadership of the leader of the free world, And I feel like when I'm seeing these signs now, I see a lot of very infiltrative type things that brought down Bernie Sanders came. Like you mentioned Bernie before, a lot of parallels here, and this is like Cornel's third run for president. So we can't exactly have like that, oh my God, this is really going to happen. I don't have that level of optimism, I'm still cautiously optimistic, but yeah, making these little mistakes and these little things. I feel like if Cornel, I feel like he's either going to concede maybe early mid part of next year, or if he makes it down the finish line, the Democrats are going to come in. They're going to just undermine his campaign like they did Bernie. That's kind of my fear, man. I don't want to be negative, but but yeah, I feel you on kind of like being like, does this voting shit even matter anymore? Shit, especially with these fucking, I think every election had some sort of fraud or tinkering issue. I mean, when you dropped off, I mentioned how there's this documentary called Hacking Democracy, 2006. The Democrats talked all about that, the 2000 election, 2004 election, 2016 election. Y'all talked all about election fraud, and now you want to tell me 2020, all of a sudden, it's a fair and secure election. Like, there's always been election fraud. So I feel like we're trapped on both sides, rocking a hard place. So yeah, that's all I got, man. Anything else you want to add before we go to the last topic? We got Trump over here. Got to end with Trump.
Well, I mean, it's the control of the narrative, like what you're saying, as far as like looking at, who controls what or whatever. It's the control of the narrative. Because like you said, we've all talked about how the election in 2004 was rigged.
They were 2000,
and in 2000.
and 20, and I think there was some level of tinkering in 2016 as well.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't remember, because remember in 2008 when Obama was running against Hillary, and in the primary, and so they got to Michigan, and well, it happened more so in 2016, because when Hillary and Bernie were running against each other in the primary, they never would go to Michigan and look at the poll numbers. And the reason they couldn't is because the Democratic Party had to throw Michigan away. And the reason they had to throw Michigan away is because Granholm was the governor here. And she had apparently had some kind of deal worked out where if Hillary had become president, she was going to get some kind of position in Washington. So he moved up the Michigan primary to a sooner date. And when she moved it up, Hillary was the only person on the ballot. So if you voted, you could only vote for Hillary. So the Democratic Party was like, hey, that ain't fair. John Edwards and Barack Obama did not have enough time to get themselves listed on the ballots. And so because they didn't have enough time, Hillary won Michigan. So they had no idea how Michigan would go during the 2016 primary, because Hillary didn't run here against actual competition. So when Bernie won Michigan, it was a shocker, but it shouldn't have been, because nobody liked Hillary. And I mean, we had a long history of people not liking Hillary. And so, I mean, 2016, that's an example of some type of rigging or thumb on the scale of the quote unquote democracy process.
Man,
but
I didn't
nobody talks about that. They want to say, oh, and then after, with Trump, Hillary and everybody on the mainstream liberal media was saying, hey, Trump cheated. And they said that shit the whole time he was president, that Russia helped him win. And we've had all types of
Russiagate,
all types of reports and digging, and you haven't found anything to prove that to be the case. And nobody has had to apologize for it. Rachel Maddow haven't had to apologize for it. I forget the chick name on Joy-Ann Reid. They had to apologize for it. Like, it's a double standard. But all these rules and all these laws are only applied to the people when the people in power decide so. You know what I'm saying? It's not fairly and equally a distribution of rules. They do that shit when they want to. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. We have to stop falling for that.
Yeah, we gotta get out of this. Moments like these, I go black pill, but you gotta remember, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. All right, great, well said. And I didn't even know that. That was a great perspective to share on that. A lot of the voting foolery that happens on both sides. All right, so we're gonna end it here. I know we, getting back in on the home stretch. All right, so Trump fraud trial, court adjourns after testimonies this week from Eric and Don Jr. Former President Donald Trump and his daughter are expected to testify next week. All right, so let's dive into this a little bit. What to know about Trump's testimony in the civil fraud trial? Eric Trump testified again in the $250 million civil fraud trial against the Trump family and their company. His testimony began yesterday, at times becoming heated. Eric Trump, the youngest former president of the two adult sons, acknowledged he was aware of the Trump's organization statements of financial conditions far back as 2013, after repeatedly denying knowledge of them. I should have, NBC is just so, NBC News. New York Attorney General Letitia James' office has argued Trump's children participated in a scheme falsely inflating their company's assets to secure more favorable loans and insurance policies The former president and his daughter, Ivanka Trump, are expected to take the stand next week. His oldest son, Donald Trump Jr., also testified this week. All right, so I'm going to call bullshit on a couple of things here that we got to keep in mind. First of all, this trial is a show trial. It's based on the fact that, once again, there are no people, there are no victims or plaintiffs that have come forward that came to Letitia James' office and said, we got screwed out of this money. The banks approved the loans. The banks didn't come to them and say we got defrauded and all that stuff. So this is, once again, the office of Letitia James taking it upon themselves, saying we're the people of New York. But you have no plaintiffs that actually sued on this. The bank said they got the loan payments on time. There was no victims. There was no crime of this. Next thing we have to remember is the fact that they try and take this bullshit sort of the Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million. When you can go to Zillow, look up beachfront property on Palm Beach, and you can even see like a small property, maybe 10th the size of Mar-a-Lago, that's starting at 50, 60 million. So this whole narrative about they're inflating their property, or they're saying it's worth more than it's supposed to. And anyone that dabbles in real estate even knows that if anything, you try and undervalue your property. You're not trying to overinflate it to get these loans. The biggest issue with this case that has no legs is the fact that there are no banks, no victims coming forward with this. This is just coming out of the New York office, Letitia James' office, and the fact that they're trying to say the Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million. Once again, I got plenty of beefs with Trump, a list a mile long, but I'll call out the lot of the bullshit stuff that Trump's guilty on versus the frivolous stuff. This is up there with the Stormy Daniels case. But conspiracy brother, feel free to give me your thoughts on this. I could rant, but
see,
it's
this is
another
fundamentally,
yeah.
This is fundamentally like, again, the way they twist laws and shit to try to get the people they don't like. Because how do you say that a property is overvalued or undervalued? Like, how do you say that? Especially looking at the housing market. I posted an article in our group yesterday where it says like home rates, mortgage rates are increasing, and housing prices are still high. So what makes anything valuable? Like, this is the part about like art and shit. Like, all this shit is like money laundering. Like art is money laundering. Like, it's just flat out money laundering. But like, they want to try to act like there's some kind of justification for it. The stock market is all fake and inflated. All that shit is false, bro. And so like, this is just purely another way to try to attack Trump because they see that what they was trying ain't working. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, this may be controversial, but like Jean-Michel Basquiat, like all his art, to me is total bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
That ain't the only one.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like right now everybody want to hype him up and this is worth hundreds of millions of dollars and everybody want to buy his shit. Like, it's garbage.
Niggas weren't even thinking about that till Jay-Z started talking about him.
Right.
Yeah, Basquiat, Jay-Z made Basquiat hot.
Right. Yeah. And it's garbage. But the reason that it's valuable now is, one, like you just said, some rich guy owns it, and there are no more that can be made. So there's a finite amount. And so if everybody got them, or all the ones that are available are sold and owned, there's no more access to any new ones. So now mine is valuable. But it don't mean nothing. Like, they try to assign all this. This motherfucker, I watched a little documentary on him years ago. Bro, all he was doing was just trying not to be homeless. Because he had like left his parents home. His dad was like an accountant. His mom was some shit. Like, she was a teacher. Like, his family's Haitian. He wasn't poor or nothing. Like, he grew up in a stable family. You know what I'm saying? But he wanted to kind of be rebellious and shit. And so he left home, and basically he was gonna have to live on the street. And so like he started just trying to do like graffiti and art and shit to try to make money. And then Andy Warhol kind of, you know, he developed a liking to him, and I think Andy Warhol was like sexually attracted to him. I think they may have had a relationship.
Yeah. He
wanted
that.
Yeah. You know, it was more than an admiration of his art. It was, you know, I want to be with this.
All right. Want that ass.
Right. And so that was really like, that's what I think happened. You see what I'm saying? I think that's he got blown up because Andy Warhol was already famous, and so that kind of gave him some credit in the art community. And not like the shit is ugly. It's ugly and it don't mean nothing. I saw him paintings in the documentary that I watched. He was like painting a door. And like he was painting shit, then he would just paint over it. Then he would just like, it wasn't thought behind it. He wasn't. And that's the thing about art. Like when you look at guys like Rembrandt and shit, and back in those days, and even like when you get to the Impressionists and stuff, art was functional.
Right.
Right. When you look at guys like Rembrandt and shit, you were the photographer. Right. So you had to practice to create a likeness of an individual. How can I make my painting or drawing look as similar to you as you look? But as we've gotten more advanced with technology and cameras and all this shit, that function is unnecessary. And so now art is a medium trying to find its own purpose. You see what I'm saying? And so you find that because it's trying to find itself, its place in modern society, that it's really gone away from anything coherent or sensible. Right? And that's what Basquiat, that shit was an art. Right? It was just garbage. And it's only big now because a couple of rich people own all his shit. If they found 100,000 Basquiat paintings tomorrow, his shit would be completely devalued instantly. But it's just because there was a finite amount of pieces made, and rich people own it, and it's a way for them to launder their money. They can say,
I was about to say, there's some ties to money laundering. You know,
right?
Kind of
I donated all this art to this museum, so now I won't have to pay taxes for the next 20 years because I donated this bullshit that don't mean nothing. You see what I'm saying? It's just all fucking. It's terrible.
Or rich people get to that level, you got to just spend money, or you got to pay taxes with it, or you got to spend it and file it under some sort of asset or income expense. Otherwise, the tax is going to take it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. With that, I mean, once again, like, just back to the Trump thing. It's just once again, I'd rather. There's so many things that Trump did bad as president that they could easily prosecute him for, but they won't, because guess what? That means they're going to come after all the other presidents. Like, how come Trump isn't on trial for funding the Saudi war in Yemen, bomb droning, killing an 8-year-old girl? How come he's not on trial for blowing up budgets, and he attached Congressman Thomas Massey and ended up taking out a $2 trillion COVID stimulus bailout? And that led to a lot of the, not only Biden, but obviously some of what Trump did with that overspending led to the inflation we're currently enduring. How come Trump isn't on trial or a civil case for his military coup in Bolivia? How come he's not on trial for being part of NATO expansion, sending weapons to Ukraine, even when Obama didn't? There's a whole list of beefs I have with Donald Trump, but what I can't stand is these political circus trials. Stormy Daniels, Letitia James, Fani Willis in Atlanta, which is clearly, even though I got beefs with Trump, clearly this is the biggest election interference way beyond anything that you could say that Trump had the right to have the states go back, send the votes back, or have Pence had the right to send the votes back to the states. That's in the Constitution. All right. But all these, they know that they can't bring up these other crimes that Trump has actually done as president. Because guess what? We got to go back and get Bush, Obama, and hold them to that same standard. So what are we going to do? We're going to throw everything we can at him with all these BS trials before the 2024 election. If it wasn't election interference, Democrats, you guys would be the bigger people and say, you know what? We have all these trials waiting for you, but let's just see how the election pans out, and then we're going to come after you after. But no, they're going to do it before because they're afraid of having him back in office, and they know they can't charge him with the real crimes he's behind because every other president did the same thing. I'm going to end that there. Conspiracy brother, any other thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. All the presidents, at least, I would say, especially the ones in our lifetime,
right,
have been war criminals. All of them have been war criminals. All of them have done some shady shit. You look at the Clinton Foundation and how Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton essentially sold influence. That whole shit with the server, like they tried to act like, oh, it's no big deal, it's no big deal, but that was actually breaking a federal law. Federal employees have to keep their communications on a government server so that they can be FOIA'd at any time. And so she was breaking the law by doing that shit. They wanted to act like it was no big deal. Joe Biden's son smoking crack, videotaped numerous times, dealing with prostitutes, having a gun when he's already a felon, getting kicked out of the military for having drugs in his system, crashing cars, his trade deals, not trade deals, but his deals that he did with China and Ukraine, selling influence, selling the family name, all this shit. Nobody blinks an eye at it. But you telling me that Donald Trump overinflated the value of property? You're a fucking sales. I mean, that's probably one of the most legal things a person can do. If I say that the shit is worth this and you buy it, what's the harm? I just bought a house, 2 years ago.
And he paid all the bank loans back on time. And once again, the banks never came and brought this to the office of Letitia James. And you even look back at his multiple businesses. He started over 500 businesses. People go, well, he's a failed businessman. He went bankrupt several times. Like, well, out of like hundreds of businesses, people, successful entrepreneurs, and the ones that make it over time, they do have multiple bankruptcies. They lose their wealth, they build it back up again, or they have to refi or reconsolidate their debt. So it's just yeah. You were saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, where is the third party measure that we use to determine the value of property?
Apparently, all they got is Zillow. All they have is Zillow.
Let's just say hypothetically, I have this house that I live in now, and I bought it for $100,000, and I turn around and say I want to sell it for $400,000. If somebody buys it, I haven't committed a crime. Nobody forced you to buy this shit. But I'm allowed to sell it for whatever value I see fit. Like, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that this is even a question. But again, they don't have anything else.
Oh, they got plenty. But once again, what the real shit they could bring on Trump, they'll have to do it to all the other presidents and Hillary Clinton and all that. So they don't want that smoke. So they're going to just play around with these little kangaroo court cases, just keeping Trump tied up, keeping him spread thin, between now and the 2024 election. This is the biggest election interference at all. And I think even Alan Dershowitz, like, he's like this, he wrote this book called Get Trump. He was like, what I don't really like about the guy, he was apparently a former lawyer of Jeffrey Epstein. And he was even on Kim Iverson's show, and she called him out for it, and he got really mad. But even him, he was like, I'm a Democrat liberal. I don't like Trump. I don't plan to vote for him. But these cases are ridiculous. And if the Democrats were willing to run on merit, they would, whatever civil cases or they want to bring against Trump, they would wait till after the election and beat him fair and square off of their policies, off of their ideas, and off of their merit, not all this civil case crap. And he even called that out, you know? So that in its essence, we could stay on this, but I just feel like we should kind of wrap it up at this point. But great discussion. Lot going on. Anything else? Obviously we want to keep this going, guys. We're back, Uncomfy Truths. We hope to bring you guys these broadcasts at least twice a month. And obviously, we want to definitely hit the ground running before the new year, for the holidays hit. So we want to hopefully maybe have another one maybe later this month. Might not be on the week of Thanksgiving, but maybe the week before. We'll see. But yeah, that's all I got. Conspiracy Brother, anything you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, man. Just it's just so discouraging how easily people are persuaded to follow bullshit. As long as somebody tugs at their heartstrings, man. I just want people to open their fucking minds up, man. Just God, man. Just fucking God. You know what I mean? Just open your fucking mind up, bro. Just God, bro. Just stop falling for this bullshit, man. Stop. Whatever. It's so frustrating, bro, because it seems like it's just so frustrating, man.
Seems like we're yelling into like an empty abyss.
Yeah, like you yelling into the wind, bro. You yelling into the wind because people just that quickly. Just that quickly, they fucking falling for it.
They fall for this, and once again, Andy Frisella talks about this a lot. As soon as we get close to some level of accountability or some level of like at least bigger awakening, where it kind of starts getting into the mainstream, they flip it again. A new psyop, COVID, Ukraine. We're about to get close with Biden crime family in Israel, Palestine, and then people fall into the same propaganda. People that fell for Russiagate, but then saw COVID. People that fell for COVID, but then they saw past Russiagate. And guess what? There's people that fell for the recurring Russia war, but guess what? Israel and Palestine show up and they fall for that. But they saw everything else, but now they don't see this next psyop. So that's the biggest thing, is that we just got to keep, I think honestly too, bro, I think we need to get on YouTube. I think we could just literally upload. I know we're just on Rumble, and I know we'll probably get censored off YouTube or maybe demonetized, but I feel like
I
we should still keep videos on there,
You see how they just did the shit with Russell Brand, where because he's accused of sexual assault.
Yeah. Oh man, no, we got to talk on that next week, man. You could give me a little thoughts right now, though, while we're here.
Well, I mean, you see how they took him off YouTube? They demonetized him for some shit. It wasn't even proved. It wasn't even fucking proved. So I just know if we do get on YouTube, we're probably gonna be.
These are it's a time we live in where we are. It's guilty until proven innocent. Allegations over convictions. I even mentioned this in the group chat. Remember, I said I don't care if you are a male or a female, but any accuser where it turns out you were lying about a sexual allegation, you should serve the exact same sentence that the person you accused was up for if they were convicted. And I stand by that. That would get rid of 90% of the BS allegations. The people they approach, the accuser would think twice about it. And that lawyer could either be censured or put on a list on public record or get a fine. But once again, the Lawyers Association, they'll make sure to bar that, because lawyers know their clients are guilty most of the time, So an ideal world. But what's crazy is just the fact that it's not like Russell Brand had a live stream where he sexually abused or assaulted a woman on camera. We're talking about 20 years ago, text, or hearsay. And once again, the text evidence was pretty strong, but once again, these were anonymous women. So that's just a concerning thing, is that this isn't even something that was online or like on video, or he did on YouTube grounds, and then just like that, cut him out, shut him out, you know? So that's just, yeah. Yeah. So I'm still optimistic as far as like, let's just put it on YouTube anyway. There could be some people, we'll talk more about that obviously, but I think at least there's some stragglers that might see us on here. Some videos might get censored or not, but then they could hop over on Rumble, follow us some more. Because there's still like an audience on YouTube that's just not on Rumble yet. But we could obviously talk about that at some point. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm black pill right now, but long term I'm cautiously optimistic we could just keep putting the word out, man, but then prepare for the worst in the short term, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically.
Yeah. All right. All right, y'all. Uncomfy Truths, episode 13. We are back. This will be uploaded. Well, obviously be uploaded when you're listening to it. But we will be back at least twice a month. And we will continue to bring you the uncomfortable truths, the views that mainstream won't cover, that people don't want to hear. We're gonna tell you anyway. And even if we got to shout into the abyss, if we could just get a few of you guys to hear what we're saying, share the shit with somebody else, at least one person we really appreciate it. But all right, uncomfy truths, we out.
Okay, peace.
Peace.